Okay, good morning, students and parents. My name is Vijay Sonavne. Okay, let us have a quick audio and sound check. I mean, audio sound check and video check. Just look at your chat box and just confirm me whether you are in a position to hear me and you are in a position to see me. Can you just type yes quickly in your chat box so that I know that, you know? Oh, fantastic. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so before we start, let's have some meeting hygienes. Okay, see, we are here for a career conversation with Air Commodore Mrigendra Singh. And the first rule of armed forces is to be disciplined. Okay, and hence,
Yes, sir.
I would request all of you to remain muted at all times. We are going to give you an opportunity to have a direct conversation with sir. You can directly ask him questions, okay? And however, we will do that after some time, after we have a formal presentation by sir, okay? So again, please keep your audio on mute. Please keep your video on mute, okay? Because at this point in time, we need to understand is that, you know, we are going to have we need to look at the presentation and we need to look at what sir is trying to, yeah. And hence, please remain muted at all times. Do not open your audio or video during presentation time. In case if you would like to, you know, draw some notes, write some notes, please keep your notebooks and pen handy. We will give you an opportunity to ask questions during our question and answer session. And there also we are going to have a certain discipline. You have to just type in your name and the place you are calling from, and I will give you an opportunity to ask question one by one so that we don't have any chaos. Okay. In case of some technology failure, please re-log in using the same meeting ID and password. So we need not panic, but since we are in a technology world and there is a possibility that we may have a failure, but in case of any failure, you can re-log in. Yeah. And I would take this opportunity to thank you in advance for maintaining the discipline, and thank you for your cooperation in advance. Yeah. So just to give you a formal idea about this career conversation initiative. Career conversation initiative is a brainchild of Arham Intelligence Institute. My name is Vijay Sonavne and I'm one of the chief promoters of Arham Intelligence Institute. I'm a counseling psychologist and a career psychologist. It's our endeavor to spread career awareness to the students and parents so that they are in a position to take a scientific career decisions. And hence we are producing a lot of content in that particular front. And we have a lot of podcast and video YouTube channels, and, stuff like that, blogs. Okay. However, we realize that we are not in a position to provide insight in that particular career, okay, or in that particular occupation. And hence we started this initiative called Career Conversation, in which we call accomplished and very eminent personalities of respective field, because they have lived that life and they are in a position to give us a better insight, better perspective, and better understanding how they live that particular life, right? And so far we had ISRO scientists coming as an chief guest. We had a colonel from Indian Army. We had a fashion photographer. We had IIM alumni. And today's Career Conversation, we are very happy and we are glad that Air Commodore Brigendra Singh sir has accepted our invitation, and he is already logged in this session. So I welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you for accepting our invitation. Okay, so just to give you a slight background about sir. Okay, though he has a very big biodata, but I'll just quickly kind of in touch base his accomplishments. Brigendra Singh sir belongs to a place called Rewa from Madhya Pradesh, and he also did his initial schooling from Sainik School Rewa, and after that joined the National Defense Academy Khadakwasla. After completing his 3 years course at NDA, he joined Indian Air Force Academy, and he got commissioned in the Indian Air Force on 22nd September 1983. Okay, and so he spent close to about 36-37 years with the Indian Air Force, and he has flown various types of fighter, including MiG-21, MiG-23, MiG-29, and Sukhoi 30 MKI. Okay, and for his relentless hard work, unwavering loyalty to service, devotion to duty, and operational skills of the higher order, the Honorable President of India has awarded him Vishishta Seva Medal on 26th January 2003. So he's a very decorated officer, and we are really happy and glad that we have sir with us. And who's going to tell us life at Indian Air Force as a fighter pilot, and how you can become a successful fighter pilot. And I'm sure we have many students and parents, okay, they would like to know about it, okay, right? Because this is very a rare path. We do not have much idea about Indian Force or other Indian Armed Forces and how the selection happens and stuff like that. Though Colonel Atul Mishra in his last session has given us a good idea, but I'm sure sir is going to talk again particularly about. So sir, welcome once again, and I hand over this session to you. I will just put up your presentation so that we can get going. Yeah.
Okay, Vijay, thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome, sir.
Do I have your permission to start?
Just a moment, sir. Just a moment. Yes, sir.
Okay. As I said, thanks a lot, Vijay, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interact with the youngsters and their parents and do my bit in trying to clarify certain basic issues which may be there with the youngsters regarding the Indian Air Force and how to go about joining the service as such. At the very outset, I would like to apologize for this lockdown effect on my face. But I am enjoying it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So without wasting any time, I'll first, though Vijay has already covered a brief about my life and career, but I'll go over the whole thing. And thereafter, I will cover in sequence as to how I went through from my schooling till NDA and as an officer and a fighter pilot in the Air Force till the time I retired. And I'm sure that will cover almost everything that a student today who's aspiring to join the Indian Air Force as a pilot, as a fighter pilot, should know. However, at the end of it, if there are questions like Vijay said, I would be more than happy to answer. So I was born in Rewa, a very small place in those days, of course. And I did my schooling in Sainik School, Rewa. You can see the picture of my alma mater. And I joined at the age of 9 years. So in effect, you can say that I put on a uniform at the age of 9, which came out at the age of 56 years. In the school, like any other child, we participated in each and everything. Sainik schools, of course, have a little bit of orientation towards the armed forces and take you through full, holistic development of a child, in which you study, of course, then you take part in games and sports, then you do a little bit of parade, you do a little bit of NCC training, boxing, and various other activities. You have debates, declamations, you have library classes. So the aim there is basically to do the overall development of the personality. I'm covering this right now here because it is very important, which I'll come to a little later when you go in for the SSB. So most of the time we keep thinking that we can devote our time to studies and ignore certain things. Yes, we have to devote our time to the studies, but certainly we cannot ignore the overall personality development of a student. That is an important point for the student himself, but he may be very small and may not understand that at that age. But for parents and teachers, it's very, very important. Okay, so of course, I participated in all the activities there, and then I passed out, went to NDA. After having cleared my UPSC written exam and SSB, joined NDA in December of 80. And this is one of the pictures during one of the camps at NDA, where you are physically taken to your extremes and tested for your endurance, both physical and mental. In NDA, we have basically go through various types of training. Once again, both studies, of course, simultaneously they are going on.
Sir, sorry for the interruption for a minute. Aditya, can you please help me unmute the people who have muted themselves? Yeah. Sir, you'll have to mute yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Particularly the last 2 days.
Shall we cut? Vijay?
So you can go ahead.
Okay. So in NDA itself, I mean, Vijay, you can retain this for some time.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll first cover about myself, and then we'll come to this.
Sure,
okay?
Sure.
So from Sainik School, I went to NDA, completed my training, then went to AFA, did my training, and then got selected to go into the fighter stream. And my initial training was in MiG-21s. So I flew MiG-21s for about 5-6 years, achieved my fully operational status. And that time I was posted in an operational squadron in Bhuj, which is on the border of India, Pakistan, closer to Karachi. And I got married at that stage. From there, we got selected to go in for MiG-29s. MiG-29s had just come into the Indian Air Force. And went to Pune. I flew MiG-29s for close to about 7.5 years in 2 tenures. After that, I did during that tenure, I did my fighter combat leader training. It is one of a very, very specialized training. It is like Top Gun movie that you must have seen, Top Gun School, which is there in US for the fighter pilots. That is the Makkah and Medina of a fighter pilot. Similarly, in Indian Air Force, we have TACD, Tactics and Combat Development Establishment. So it's a very prestigious course. Every fighter pilot wants to do that course. And I was lucky to have got selected for that. I did that course and continued in MiG-29 Squadron. After which I was coming to an age and stage where I needed to do my Defense Services Staff College from Wellington, close to Ooty. So we went for that 1-year course. It is a course which teaches you for higher defense management, basically. You know, now you are coming to a seniority where you will not only have to work operationally, you will also have to get into administration and management. So this course is very important. It takes you through various nuances of management and specializations in various fields. After that, I was posted in the Air Headquarters in the personnel branch, looking after the posting, promotions, and various other deputations of the officers of the ranks of Group Captain and below. From there, I went to Command number 4 Squadron, which is called Uriels. The mascot for that squadron is Uriels. It is a MiG-21 squadron on the Indo-Pak border. And that is the only squadron in the Indian Air Force, if I remember correctly, which has never been number plated. And it has operated all across the world during Second World War, including Japan. So I had the honor of commanding that squadron. And the command is for 2 years, of course. And after that, then I came back to Air Headquarters into the same personnel branch. Once again, 2 years tenure at Delhi, then went back to Jamnagar. It's very important, very big base in Gujarat. I went there as Chief Operations Officer. So that base, of course, looks after the air defense and various other activities in that whole of area. I was there for 1.5 years. Once again, came back to Air Headquarters. I was there for about 3 years. Thereafter, I went to Chabua. This is a place in Upper Assam on the borders of China and Myanmar. Chabua is a fighter base which houses Su-30 MKI, the most advanced fighter aircraft, I should say, in the world, which the Indian Air Force is very proud to have. I went to command that base. That base, apart from Su-30s, has got various other equipments, both air defense and other type of equipments, which we may not be able to disclose here. And I was very honored to have commanded that base. That is the place where I flew Su-30s also as the base commander. And after having completed my tenure there, I went to Jaipur, then to Pune. And from Pune, I went to Delhi once again. In the Tri-Services Organization, you must have heard the latest thing is about the CDS, Chief of Defense Staff. He heads the Tri-Services Organization, which has the components from all 3 services. So I was there in one of the departments. And at the end of my tenure there, I retired and now settled at Bhopal. Okay. So now I would cover, after having covered my, how I went about my career, I will cover as to how the whole thing, how a small, a young man, when he goes to school, and how he comes up and becomes an officer and a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force. Like I covered earlier. So from my story, you can relate, how you will progress if you happen to join. From Sainik School, we went to NDA, and NDA like, okay, Vijay, we can continue now. Yeah. So this is one of the trainings. In NDA, we have to basically, we have cadets from all 3 streams, Army, Navy, and Air Force. It is one of the most premier institutions of the world. I mean, one has to go to see to believe it. And one has to see the training there to believe it. It converts a boy into a gentleman officer. The main purpose of NDA is to train the future officers of the three services together, so that they build up a kind of understanding and a kind of a camaraderie among themselves, and which is very important, of course. And as the world, we are progressing in the world today, the jointness is the in thing now. Everybody is talking about jointness. No war can be fought in isolation. All the three services have to coordinate together, and in a precise manner, they have to execute the war. And therefore, NDA plays its very, very important role. In NDA, we have the 3 years of training is divided into 6 terms. We call it terms or semesters, whatever you may like to call, but we call it terms in NDA. And for first 5 terms, the training is together, during which the general service knowledge is taught. The physically you are strengthened, various other activities take place, various other trainings take place, and you are really toughened. In the 6th term, the cadets are trifurcated. I mean, the Air Force cadets do their specialized training, Army cadets do their specialized training, while Naval cadets they do their specialized training. So you can see me in a glider. This is the first time you are given experience of flying. In my days, of course, we had powerless gliders, but now we have got powered gliders in NDA, which is much more versatile and gives much more experience to a cadet who is aspiring to now become a pilot in the Indian Air Force. So after the this kind of a training in NDA, after this kind of training in NDA, then we go into our respective. So you can see the social function and all that. So I mean, I would say that all-round development of a cadet takes place in NDA, and he is groomed into becoming an officer and a gentleman. So after this 3 years of training, rigorous training in NDA, we are trifurcated and we go now for a specialized training to our individual academies. So Air Force cadets go to Air Force Academy, which is in Dundigal near Hyderabad. And this is the aircraft, the HT-2, Hindustan Trainer 2. In those olden days, I mean, when we went as cadets, we used to fly this aircraft as a basic fighter trainer, a basic trainer. The PARD flying was introduced at that stage. Now, of course, you have got Pilatus, which is much more advanced. And this thing. So first 6 months, you are trained in the HT-2. Thereafter, you do the jet training. For jet training, again, you are brought back to AFA and you train on the Kirans. This is known as HJT, Hindustan Jet Trainer. The Air Force name is Kirans. So you do about 120 hours of flying in Kirans. At the end of this training, you get commissioned as a pilot officer. In those days, we used to get commissioned as pilot officers. During this training, the Air Force studies, of course, about the Air Force general knowledge, Air Force customs, traditions, etiquettes, continue side by side. You are also introduced and you are taught about the aero engines, airframes, aerodynamics. So while you are doing practical training in the aircraft, you have ground classes and you also have your physical training going on simultaneously. So it's a rigorous training for 1 year, during which you are now trained as an Air Force cadet. After the commissioning, now this is a picture which was immediately after the commissioning. That was in 83 December. And the picture that was shown earlier, before this, Vijay, can you go back to that picture, if it is possible? Yeah, this one. This is an Iskra aircraft. All the pilots, I mean, when you are commissioned, at that time, you are once again trifurcated. The cadets are trifurcated to fighters, transports, and helicopters. This trifurcation is done based on your performance during the training period of 1 year. That is assessment of your instructors and your own choice. Your choice is, of course, taken into granted, but the instructors who are training you, who are watching you, they are the best ones to assess as to what would suit you better. You are suited for which stream. So those who are selected as to go into fighter stream, in those days we used to train in the Iskara. This was Polish aircraft and very good aircraft for this kind of training. Now we have got Hawks. So Hawk is of course very, very advanced aircraft, very good aircraft, and you get a very good training these days in those aircraft and you get good exposure. So I trained on the Iskaras, and this was the picture when we can move on. And this is a picture immediately after the commissioning in 1983, December 1983. Okay. After the commissioning, so please retain this picture for some time. Okay. Once again, after this 6 months training in Iskara, which was at a place in Hyderabad, near Hyderabad, a place called Hakimpet. This training was for 6 months, where we did day flying, night flying, a little bit of exposure to weaponry, air to ground weapons. And once again, we were segregated for various, aircraft. So like that time we had MiG-21s, MiG-23s, Jaguars, and various other aircraft. Now, depending upon your choice, you are given that aircraft. I opted to go for the MiG-21s because, I mean, for my personal reasons, I like to, in the air defense side and wanted to do certain things, which, your scramble and your ORPs when you are all the time underground. So that was the, that was the craze at that time. And fortunately, I was given this MiG-21s. And those who were given MiG-21s, they had to once again go for 1 year training to Tezpur in Assam. That was the type training unit for MiG-21s, in which we had to fly MiG-21, one of the types of MiG-21s, earliest type, that was Type 77 aircraft, which was brought in during, even before 71 war, of course. And this is the aircraft that you see is a trainer aircraft for MiG-21. And after some time, we'll show you the fighter aircraft also. So this is all my course mates. We got selected, all those who got selected, who got, got selected for MiG-21s. And this picture is after, after we all did our first solo. Solo means, I mean, after about 10, 12 hours of flying along with your instructor, when he is convinced that you are fit to go for a solo flight, then you are sent on a single seater, the actual fighter aircraft. And of course, that's the biggest milestone in the life of fighter pilot. So all of us, then we took a picture. It's a photograph of 1984. Okay. Thereafter, here again, we are introduced to MiG-21s basically. We do little bit of combat flying also here, where we have 2 to 3 aircraft involved. Then we do a lot of air to ground firing, guns firing, bomb firing, missile firing. So all these things are, taught to us there. Firstly, by the instructors. For every phase, we go with the instructors in a trainer aircraft. Then we go solo and practice all these things. So after 1 year, once we are declared fit in MiG-21 type training squadron, then we are allotted the operational squadrons. I was allotted 15 squadron, which was operating MiG-21 BIS aircraft, which has been converted into Bison now. Bison is the aircraft which Abhinandan was operating during the conflict with the Pakistani a year back. So I went to 15 squadron, which was based at Kutch, Bhuj. And once again, when you go to the operational squadron, now 15 squadron is not a type training squadron. It is a fully operational squadron. It is a squadron which is ready to go to war, which has got its own strength. And they induct 2 to 3 pilots in each such squadrons and groom them through their training, specialized training. And so I stayed in 15 squadron for 5 years in Bhuj. During that stage, initially I was given trainer sorties, then I was given solo sorties in that aircraft also, because each aircraft is a little different, though it is called MiG-21, but the versions are different. So there again, I did initial basic training, some combat training, some low-level flying training, some flying over sea, because that area is covered with sea. So in operations, you might have to fly over sea, night flying, then air-to-air firing, missile firing. And after that, I was cleared for as a day off. Means if the war breaks out at that stage, during the day, I can go into war. Then my training further continues in night. So I do all these things at night also, which I did. So after 2.5 years of training, I was declared fully ops. Fully ops means that you can now be taken into war any time of the day, because of course, when the war breaks out, you may be required to operate at any time of the day during 24 hours. Along with that, you are also trained and you are tested for your flying skills during bad weather. So accordingly, you are given your rating. You are initially given green rating, then you are given master green rating. So once you achieve master green rating, then you can fly in the worst of the weather. Accordingly, you keep enhancing your skills and keep enhancing your capabilities. And once you have achieved fully off status, once you have achieved your master green rating, then you start doing the lead checks. Lead checks means in war, you will never have one aircraft going into your action. There will always be the 2 aircraft, 3 aircraft, 4 aircraft, 5 aircraft, 6 aircraft in groups. You'll be going. So you are, initially you are following your leader. Then you start getting trained as a leader. So first you're trained as a 2 aircraft leader, where you can take only 1 aircraft with you and go into action. Then you are trained for a 4 aircraft leader. And further, after 4 aircraft leader, you are trained and checked as a supervisor. So once you are trained and checked and approved for 4 aircraft lead, you can take 4 aircraft into war. And once you are declared a supervisor, you can take larger formations into war. You can participate along with other type of aircraft. You may be going into enemy territory where there are a lot of bombers whom you are escorting to save them from enemy aircraft. So you have to join up with them, fly around them. And while bombers are dropping bombs, you engage the enemy fighters who may be coming to shoot down your own bombers. So all these things are carried out, and you are trained for that, and you're declared fit for that at every stage depending upon your performance. If you're not able to perform, then you're given some more additional sorties. You're given more checks. And mind you, these checks are in air, as well as you have to do ground training as well, so that you are fully aware. I mean, your action has to be backed by the knowledge. So I did that, for 5 years we were there, we achieved all our status. And that is the time when, I got married, and Indian Air Force was getting MiG-29s from Russia. So I was selected for that and moved to Pune. Now, whatever I did for 5 years, all the stages in MiG-21, this is MiG-29, and same stages you have to go through again in MiG-29, because it's a different aircraft. It's a twin engine aircraft. It's got different weapons. It has got different kind of radar. Everything is flying characteristics are different. Its usage is different. So same stages, okay? So you do trainer sortie, then you do solo, then you do 2 aircraft lead, you do 4 aircraft lead. But of course, if you are already 4 aircraft leader and supervisor, then you are just checked for 1 sortie, and your CO commanding officer who's there, he just certifies whether you are fit or not. But it's a great adventure. So I flew in MiG-29s for about 3.5 years at Pune. That was my 47th squadron, and we did a lot of good flying. And for you all, of course, you may have seen these flypasts over the Rajpath during Republic Day celebrations. I took part in a lot of those flypasts, and it was great fun, of course. From there, I got, this is a cockpit view of MiG-21 and instrument panel. From Pune, I was posted to, once again, Tezpur, the same institute which trains the pilots who are selected for MiG-21. Now I went there as an instructor. So I stayed there for 3 years and did training for the youngsters who get selected for MiG-21s and trained them to become trained fighter pilots for the MiG-21. After that, please retain this for some time.
Yeah.
So after that, I once again got posted to MiG-29s, came back to Pune, did a lot of flying there, and that is a time when this thing was going on, Kargil ops and all those things were going on. Then from Pune, I was posted to air headquarters, like I told you, and from air headquarters, I got posted to 4th Squadron Uriels at Badmer. Badmer is a place. Uttarlai is an airfield. Badmer is a place very close to Jodhpur, almost on the border of Indian Pakistan, Rajasthan. Very exciting flying there. It's all desert flying because all across within our country and across also where you have to operate, it's all desert. And very, very important targets you have across the border. And so we did a lot of training. We did a lot of air-to-ground firing over Pokhran range. And we did a lot of ORP. ORP is Operational Readiness Post, where the fighter pilots with the G suit that you can see that I'm wearing are resting underground in a very nice, comfortable place with all the inputs about the border and radar pictures. And your aircraft are also underground, fully equipped. You can see in this aircraft one missile, of course, and the guns and all, of course, are not visible in this one. So, and any time when there are radars, notice that the enemy aircraft are trying to enter our border into our territory, they sound the alarm and you rush, and within 2 minutes you are supposed to start your aircraft and take off and now go and engage those enemy aircraft. So it's very exciting. We did a lot of these activities. We took part in a lot of lot of exercises in the armed forces, for Army, Navy, Air Force. You continuously keep doing exercises to keep in touch with the current developments and to sharpen your skills all throughout. As a commanding officer, you have a lot of responsibility. You are commanding a whole squadron which has got about 18-20 fighter aircraft, 2-3 trainer aircraft, about 20 fighter pilots, 4-5 engineering officers are there, medical officer is there, then about 300-400 men are there. That means it's an independent fighting unit. And you are only there to ensure that unit is always fighting fit. As regards training, as regards your motivation, and in everything. So it was very challenging, but very, very nice tenure. Simultaneously, of course, the wife has got a very important role as the commanding officer's wife, where she interacts with the ladies, of the officers and men based below you, keeps them motivated, looks after their welfare, and takes care so that the men are all the time motivated and dedicated towards the task. After that, once again, I was posted back to air headquarters, and I did my tenure in the personnel branch. And by then, I got promoted to, when you go to command a fighter squadron at that time, the rank was supposed to be wing commander, which is a lieutenant colonel in Army. But now the rank has been upgraded for a commanding officer to group captain, which is full colonel in Army. So I was wing commander at that time. I went to Delhi air headquarters, 3 years tenure there, and picked up my rank to group captain. And now from there, I got posted to Jamnagar as the chief operations officer. Jamnagar is a big base which has got about 3 fighter squadrons, 1 order helicopter squadron, then air defense missile squadron. As a chief operations officer, you are responsible for the operations. Like I'll tell you, like I said, I was the base commander or air officer commanding of a base in Chabua as air commodore, which I'll come to later. Officer commanding has got 3 branches. The chief operations officer, he looks after the operations. Then he's got the chief maintenance officer. He looks after the maintenance of all your equipment. Then you've got chief administrative officer. So these are the 3 branches. I was the chief operations officer, one of the branch heads. responsible for operations from that base, air defense of that base and air defense of whole of Saurashtra area, and launching operations into enemy territory using my weapon systems which were available within Jamnagar airfield. Once again, very, very exciting tenure and very challenging tenure. It's a very active base, very strategically located, but we enjoyed our tenure. And after having done my tenure for about 1.5 years there, I once again moved back to Delhi as a director of personnel officers. So once again, I was looking after the officers part, their promotion, deputation, postings, officers of the rank of group captain and below. I did full 3 years tenure, and there I got promoted to the next rank of Air Commodore. Air Commodore is equivalent rank to brigadier in the army. So after becoming Air Commodore, I continued there for 6 months, and thereafter I was posted to Chhabua for Assam as the Air Officer Commanding, or you can say base commander of that fighter base. Chhabua is a forward base, very, very strategically located on the borders of Myanmar and China, and we had Su-30s based there and other weapons for radar, missiles, and helicopters and other things. As I just covered before this, when I was Chief Operations Officer at Jamnagar, now I was responsible for everything in that base. The whole base is a huge base. Of course, it has got about 3,000 acres of land. Then it has got a runway. It has got a fighter squadron. Then it has got missile squadron. It has got radar squadron. It's got various things. It is a self-contained, war-fighting geographical area for which the Air Officer Commanding is responsible. So you have about 100, 200, close to 200 officers and their families. Then you have got these officers are from various branches: flying branch, technical branch, administrative branch, MET branch, air traffic control branch, medical branch. All are there. Education branch. Every branch is you require all officers of all branches in a base because there are various kinds of activities. Then you've got men, about close to 5,000 men and their families. Then you've got military engineering services, which are responsible for maintenance of your, residences, electrical maintenance, domestic maintenance, civil side, and all those things. So it's a huge base. You've got for welfare, you've got schools, you've got hospitals, you've got cinema halls, you've got shopping complex. It's a big base, and you're responsible for that, and it's a very big challenge. So and we of course enjoyed that challenge and enjoyed the company. We had wonderful officers with us. We had wonderful families, and our men who were there working from morning till evening, night flying, dawn flying, dusk flying, all that. We continued. This is the picture of my 4th Squadron. When as Air Commodore, I visited 4th Squadron. I went around there, our museum. Okay, so coming back to Chhabua. Now, simultaneously, wife plays a very important role as Air Officer Commanding's wife. She now does the same thing as CEO's wife was doing for a squadron. Here, she is doing the same thing for the whole base. So we have a very good organization. This is a picture of when I was taking over command of the fighter base. Okay, so the ladies, we have a very good organization in the Indian Air Force. AFWA, Armed Forces, Air Forces Wife Welfare Association. Similar organization we have got in Army as well as Navy. So this organization takes care of all the welfare activities of the ladies of the Air Force. I mean, they have schools for the children. They have clinics running. They have certain vocational training for the wives of the Jawans. So all those activities continue, and that's how you, as a family, you live there, you work together, and you train together, and you're all the time ready to take on the operations whenever called for. So we had a tenure of about 1.5, slightly more than 1.5 years there. And after that, I was once again posted to Jaipur to an organization, which is an advanced headquarter of the Indian Air Force, alongside the Army headquarters, Army Western Air Command, Western Army Command. So the job of this advanced headquarter is to coordinate the air activity when the army moves into war. So I was commanding that unit, and I was there for about a year, and then moved to Pune into similar organization, and thereafter came back to Delhi for 2.5 years, from where I retired. Now, let me also cover here that the life in the Air Force as such is, I wouldn't call it a job per se. It's a wholesome life. I mean, you are living as a family. There is very close interaction with all the families of the men and officers around you, basically because you need to live with each other, because you have to fight together. And if you have to fight together, you have to understand each other's families, understand each other's problems, understand each other's psychology as to what kind of problem a person may be facing and what impact will it have when we have to go into war. So it's a family life. It's a huge family. You celebrate each other's birthdays, anniversary. You celebrate, some child born in a family, and sometimes you have some certain unfortunate incidents. So you are together as one family, very cohesive family. We look after each other. So much so that the kind of bond that builds up, it really can be seen in during the war. Like when we go into war, the fighter pilots, when they get airborne, let's say 4 aircraft have got airborne and they cross the border, go into enemy territory. I am not looking after my tail, who's coming behind me. I am looking after somebody, my buddy who's there with me on my side. I'm looking and trying to look after and see and prevent anybody getting into close ranges to harm him. Similarly, I have that kind of trust that my buddy is looking behind my tail. So this kind of trust you have. Haven't you heard the incidents where in the army, that kind of togetherness is there? They fight and they die for each other. So this kind of bond comes up when you grow up in service with the Army, Navy, and Air Force together as one family. And let me tell you, it's a wonderful life. And we really had a very good time. And I mean, I know I've got a certain fixed amount of time, otherwise I can keep talking about it. And of those good old days. And the friends that we made during those days are still there. And I'm sure that kind of bonhomie and friendship will be there till the end of the life. Thank you very much. I have covered, I think I have taken a little longer, but I hope I have been able to, through my story, I hope I have been able to cover as to what is life, how you go through, how you become a fighter pilot, and how you progress in your life. Now, if there are any questions, I'm ready.
Yes, sir. I think, yeah. So I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions, but let me thank you for, taking us through this journey, and we could actually very vividly, we could see, that, your time in NDA, your time at Air Force Academy, and, as a commanding officer and everything. It was very, very exciting, sir. And this is very important for students and parents to understand that, how a typical fighter pilot live his life. Okay. Now we are going to move to our next very, very important question. Okay. And we are going to have a lot of discussion around this question because I think that's the prime reason that, why everyone is here, as to like, how do I become a fighter pilot? Okay. Right. So, sir, could you please tell us, okay, that, how you become fighter pilot? What are the steps involved? What kind of examinations you need to undergo? What kind of tests are there? How much time it requires? And as a student, what all things they should do so that they have a high probability that they become a good fighter pilots. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say that, like I covered in the beginning, there are two ways of becoming a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force. One is through NDA, and the one is through the AFCAT test that you give after graduation. So first is through NDA, that you join after 12th class. You do your 12th with physics, chemistry, and maths, of course, is very important. I mean, it's mandatory, and you should have achieved at least 60% marks in that. Thereafter, you have to appear in UPSC, written examination, with the multiple answer type questions. And the syllabus is exactly as your 12th class syllabus. Once you clear that, then you are subjected to SSB, Services Selection Board. Now, Services Selection Board, you have to be there for 4 to 5 days, and they check you out thoroughly. They have psychology tests, they have various kinds of tests they have, and they really find out what is there within you. And once you clear that, then you go for your medical tests. Medical tests, therefore, are a little stringent tests because a higher level of fitness is required. After that, then they prepare the merit list, and depending upon how many vacancies are there in NDA in that particular post for which you have applied, so many are selected. And the training in NDA I have already covered. Now, for those who have not been able to enter through NDA, they complete their graduation through science stream, once again, physics, chemistry, and maths, and now appear in the AFCAT, Air Force Central Admission Test. And those who clear that, they are again sent to SSB. So they join up directly at Air Force. When these boys who have gone through NDA, after 3 years, they have completed, now they are coming to academy. These people who have done graduation outside, they get selected, they join in NDA. So thereafter, the progression is same, training is same. Now, what they check actually in SSBs. In SSB, for Army, Navy, and Air Force, SSB is same, except for certain one question paper in which you have different kinds of answers to check your aptitude, and the pilot aptitude PABT battery test per se, which is practical. One is written test PABT and one is practical test on the console. That is the only difference between the 3 SSBs. So for Air Force, you have got SSBs at Varanasi, Mysore, and Dehradun, various places. And now you got at Ahmedabad as well as in Guwahati. And for the SSB, of course, like all other services, other 2 services, your overall personality is checked, your psychology is tested, and your interviews are there, then your group activities are seen. So that's why, if you remember in the beginning, I covered that when you are in school, I mean, at that time, a child may not be able to understand, but we as parents or the teachers, we have to ensure that we see that the overall development of the personality of a child takes place. And let me tell you, the psychology or aptitude of a person cannot be changed or developed overnight. Therefore, right from beginning, I mean, one has to participate in sports, dramatics, games, take part in various other things, so that, along with your studies, you are also developing your personality. I mean, it is not necessary that you always come first in everything. I mean, if you are taking part in some athletics and all, you come first. But the very fact that you participated, your attitude is developing, you're growing, you're taking interest in that. Okay. And while, of course, simultaneously, you have to be good at study also. I hope I have answered that question.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, sir. And I think you may have to repeat maybe.
Okay, no problem.
Student may ask it again.
Yeah.
Okay, so, students and parents, now we are going to have a question answer session. Okay, as I had said earlier, let us have some discipline, and I'm going to give opportunity to maximum of you, but let us have a discipline, and I would say remain log in till the end, so that you get that opportunity right? Okay, so what we need to do is you need to just type in your, don't type your question here, okay, rather than type your name and the place you are calling from, and I will ask you to, I will rather give you an opportunity to ask question to sir directly, okay? So please give me your name and the place. Okay, Nirav Shah. Nirav, please ask your question.
Hello. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Neerav.
Acha, sir, my question was, if somebody is a lawyer or in a medical profession,
Okay.
what type of entrance exams do they need to give to enter the Air Force?
Okay. Medical side, I will not be able to tell you because very frankly, I'm not aware, but of course I can come back with the answer in some time, I'll find out. But if you're a lawyer, you have to enter once again after doing your LLB, you have to appear for AFCAT and you can get into the legal branch of the Indian Air Force.
Oh,
It's a very nice branch. I mean, they have a lot of responsibility. They do a lot of good job, good work. And you can enter there and you are posted. I mean, the legal officers are posted in every big base in commands and their headquarters as such.
okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have a Suraj? Suraj Keherwar.
Medical.
Suraj.
Hello?
Suraj, yeah.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
Suraj.
Sir, could you please explain us some tests about the PABT and CPSS? I am not aware much about it.
Okay, PABT is a test in which basically your psychomotor skills are checked. Okay.
Okay.
You can say it is a little higher form of a video game which you are doing,
Okay.
in which it is very scientifically designed. You sit down in a kind of a cockpit environment, and with your hands, feet, you have to operate certain certain valves and certain handles and certain consoles to achieve the task that may be given to you at that particular moment. The whole it's a basically computer based test, and when we went, of course, it was absolutely totally mechanical and quite primitive, but now it is very, very advanced, and they want to basically test out your psychomotor skills, what kind of coordination you've got between your mental faculties and your physical faculties. Before that, they also have a written test. So in that, again, they will explain to you as to some kind of image. What does it show? Does it show sky? Does it show earth? Some kind of bank will be shown, whether you are going to the right, coming to the left. Very, very simple things which you see almost every day in your day-to-day life. But it will show them they will be able to judge your aptitude. Like a lot of us may be driving on the road, but how many of us have ever thought of a curvature on the road, centripetal force or centrifugal force? But those who have got aptitude, they notice that when they are turning, they feel that kind of a force, isn't it? So this is the aptitude which is already inborn in you. You cannot develop it. That's why they always have PABT only once in lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So PABT is for that.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to call out 4 names in row. Okay. Suyash Jamdar, Krishna Javanjal, Cadet Prince Devri, and Nikita Bondre. So Suyash, please ask your question.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Hello, Suresh.
Yes, sir. So my question is that having a fracture in like your hand, does it affect any medical standards of the Air Force, or it totally depends upon the medical officer?
No, it doesn't affect at all. If your union has been correct, if you had fracture, if your union has been correct, then it doesn't affect. But if the joint has not healed properly, or there is a little deformity, because certain times you have bones not joining correctly, that you will know from the X-ray. Okay. So if your union has been correct, there is just no problem at all. Don't worry about it.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Suyash. Okay. Krishna, please ask.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I had a doubt regarding the eyesight for the flying branch. Like I have spectacles with a certain power, 1.5 diopter for both eyes. So, sir, is it allowed for us to do the LASIK and apply for the Air Force?
No, it is not allowed. As of now, it is not allowed.
So, but I read in the CDS notifications that if you do LASIK and everything is okay, then you
Okay.
can apply for helicopter and transport fleets, not for the fighter fleets.
As far as I know, it is not permitted unless it is a recent development after I have left the Air Force. I
Okay,
mean,
sir.
if this development is about 1 year back, then I am not aware about it.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. And let me tell you that when if you are joining after your graduation, then
Just hold on. Just hold on. I think we have some technical challenge.
joining after your graduation, then you are right from beginning you are selected for either transport or helicopter. So maybe for people who are joining direct after graduation, this may be permitted and this may be latest development.
So can you please repeat? Your voice was not audible to everyone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
What I'm saying that when you join NDA, at that time the medical standards for everybody who's joining NDA as a Air Force cadet are as per the fighter pilots.
Okay,
so
sir.
their spectacles and all are not permitted. Whereas when you join after graduation, at that time you are giving your choice for a transport oblique helicopter.
Okay.
So I am not very sure if now they have started permitting spectacles for those people who are joining after graduation. It may be there. If you have read it, it may be correct also.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Vijay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
So can we have Cadet Prince Devri?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Jain, sir.
Jai Hind.
So my question is that what type of basically qualities are needed to become an Air Force officer, and what psychology they need in SSB?
Okay. Like I covered in the beginning, they are basically looking for an average to above average performer who is very honest, who is straightforward, and who has a holistic personality, which you can develop in your schools, when you're growing up in your school by participating in every various activities, co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities, and your studies. Now, are specifically posted in the SSBs to check a negative trait maybe there on parent who has come to the SSB. And basically very straightforward, honest man, and thinking in a positive direction. And if you are a team man, then I think you should not have any problem.
Okay, thank you, Prince.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Nikita, it's your turn. Nikita Bondre.
Yes, I'm here, sir. Actually, I want to ask, sir, that is, I have a birthmark on my face, little bit brownish. Do this affect to my SSB performance, medicals?
No, Nikita, I don't think it will affect at all if it is a birthmark. Okay.
Okay.
There is no problem at all. All these things don't matter.
Okay, thank you, Nikita. Now I'm going to call out next 4 names. Be ready. Preet Vora, Harshit Pandey, and Dibanku Sinha, and Akanksha Chippa. Preet, it's your turn now. Preet,
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
please ask your question.
Sir, I want to ask question that who was the inspiration or aspiration? Can you please share with us?
I couldn't get your question, Preet. Tell me again.
Who was the
You mean to ask, like, sir, that who's your aspiration or a role model? Hello, Preet, your audio is muted. Preet,
Yes, sir.
yeah, please repeat again. Your audio was muted.
I wanted to ask that who was the inspiration or aspiration of sir?
Oh, sir, he's asking you who was your aspiration.
Asha, okay. See, my grandfather was in the Indian Army. He was in State Army earlier, then he was in Indian Army, and he led the state contingent during World War II. And I used to keep talking to him, keep asking him various questions as a small child. And of course, I got inspired by his stories. Therefore, I wanted to join the armed forces. And went into Sainik school. My parents, of course, they encouraged me a lot. And in Sainik school, there was a Harvard aircraft. Harvard was a trainer earlier. It was parked there. And somehow that aircraft fascinated me. And then I decided, okay, armed forces mein to jana hai, but Air Force mein jana hai. And that was the beginning. And of course, rest is story.
Okay, that's very inspiring. Okay, Harshit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please ask a question.
Jain, sir. Is my voice clear?
Jain, Harshit. Yes, you're clear.
Sir, my question was the same which Krishna asked. As I'm an NCC cadet also, but I wanted to join Air Force, and I also have an eyesight problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think now.
No, you can still try. Like Krishna has said, I'm sure if he has read it somewhere, it must be the correct thing. I'm not up to date with that because my information is about 1.5 years old. But I will still find out, of course, and I will come back to Vijay on that. But if Krishna has seen it, because for short service commission, you join directly for helicopter transport.
Sir,
And
is it for NDA that they don't select eyesight one or?
Yeah, in NDA they will not. I mean, you will not be able to join as an Air Force cadet in NDA if you've got an eyesight problem.
My eyesight is 1.5 for both my eyes.
So there you cannot join an NDA as an Air Force cadet. You can of course go in for Army and or Navy, and then you get into Naval Aviation or Army Aviation if you really want to take that route.
I wanted to join Air Force because
okay.
No worries. Okay, so Harshit and Krishna, both of you just drop me an email.
Yeah.
Just get it clarified from sir. Okay.
I will do that.
Now, yeah.
Mail ID. I don't have your.
I will. I'm going to share with you. Please remain login. Okay, Dibanko Sinha. Dibanko, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Sir, I have just one question. That is, I'm starting my 12th session right now. So, if I give the NDA exam now, sir, and if I clear it, sir, will it count?
Sorry, what are you starting now?
Sir, my 12th session.
12th session?
12th session. Oh,
yes,
yeah. If you give it now, it has got no meaning because there is no point giving it now. Why should you waste an opportunity? And there is no number of times that you can appear. Up to a certain age, you can appear in an exam. Okay. So don't do it now. First time that you can appear for the UPSC written exam is in the winters of that session. You understand?
Yes,
now,
sir.
When you're starting 12th now, come December when the UPSC takes place, you must go for that.
And sir, does the NCC certificate carry any marks or value in ND exam?
Not in ND exam.
Only direct.
Oh, yes, only in direct entry it carries the value.
Sir. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Akanksha, are you there, Akanksha Chipa?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Akanksha, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Akanksha.
Can you please give me guide me how to apply for IIF and explain this process, different exams to appear, as I'm just starting out and your guidance will be really helpful for me.
You are Akanksha. You are doing graduation.
Yes, I'm in final year engineering.
Okay, engineering. So you want to join as a pilot or as an engineering officer?
I'd rather prefer a pilot, sir.
Okay, okay. Because Indian Air Force also now is preferring the engineers.
Okay.
In fact, in the NDA, that the training has, I think, already started. The 3-year course is an engineering course, which continues in AFA also. In 4 years, they give you engineering degree. So you can again appear for AFCAT, and once you clear in AFCAT, go for the SSB, and then of course nowadays, I mean, there is no limit for girls or boys. You can opt for fighter, transport, helicopter, any stream, and the girls who are flying fighters are doing very well these days. I mean, they are already there in operations squadrons. So I wish you all the best. You must try for it. Why not?
Thank you. So there's one more question. I have read that girls can't appear for NDA.
Right now, it is not, but the process is already on the Ministry of Defense, and I'm sure very soon this thing will be permitted, because in the Sainik schools they have already started the induction for girls, and very soon the proposal is already on the table, and I'm sure very soon even in NDA the girls will be permitted.
So that would be great. And so what about CDS exam?
CDS exam also you can give. There's no problem. I mean, there are 3 entries into the any of the services.
Okay.
NDA, then after individual service, of course, that is, and the CDS also you can appear.
Okay. So what is the better option? So which exam should I start? Because there are few options, but it would be better if you guide me which one would be.
You can try AFCAT first.
Okay.
I would say if you are already in about to finish your engineering, try AFCAT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Akanksha, and all the best.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to call out now next 4 names. Be ready. Layak Sukhwasi, Gaurav Verma, Vedant Sharma, and Mugdha Rajwade. Okay, so Layak, please ask your question. Layak, are you there? Fine, we'll come back to you. Gaurav? Gaurav, are you there? Vedant Sharma? Oh, sorry. Vedant Sharma? Vedant, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am there.
Yeah, please ask.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, is there any example where an armed force officer turns towards the civil services and becomes an IAS or IPS officer?
Okay, Vedant. There used to be a system earlier, but right now it is not there.
Okay, sir.
Right now it is not there. But earlier, of course, even now you have in the senior ranks of IAS, you have got few secretaries and all who have been in the armed forces. But it stopped long time back, and now it is not there. Some short service commission officers go out and of course join the civil services, but certainly not. They don't have the age at that time. They join different ranks and different departments.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Vedant. Okay, Mugdha, it's your turn. Mugdha Rajwade.
Hi, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Thanks, and I must say that it was a great experience and a great journey which we are getting to hear from sir. Sir, if my question is not academic, but I would like to hear from you the experience which you've had, something which was very challenging during your services tenure.
Okay. I mean, that way, of course, I had every sortie that a fighter pilot flies is a great experience, is a new experience. But during the Kargil operations, we were operating from Jaisalmer in MiG-29s, and we scrambled once because the F-16s from that side were seen coming closer to our border, and both the air forces were very active because the war was going on in Kargil, and they were trying to test our preparedness in Rajasthan and this sector. So me and my number 2, we were airborne, and when we went, the fighter aircraft are not supposed to fly closer than 20 kilometers in peacetime, and in wartime, if you're not crossing, then 10 kilometers from the border. So we were flying at 10 kilometers and ready to cross the border and engage them. They were also flying. So we kept flying parallel to the border. But it continued for about half an hour. We used to go for about 20 miles, come back and all. So I decided that, okay, let's see how will they react if we show our intention to attack them. So I told my number 2, we turned towards them. And sure enough, like Pakis, their radar must have told them that now you better run from there because MiG-29s have turned towards you. So they vanished from there, and for the tenure that we were there in Jaisalmer throughout the war of Kargil, the Air Force, Pakistani Air Force never troubled us in that area. So that was a very good experience actually.
Wow.
Great, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mugdha. Okay. Now again, I'm going to call out for Ritik D'Souza, Rahul Yadav, Nitin Saleh, and Swara Pandey. Okay, can we have Ritik D'Souza?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah,
Ritik. Go ahead.
Sir, I just wanted to ask that I'm presently pursuing BSc, and I was thinking of opting for statistics in my final year. But
Okay.
will it affect my CDS selection for Air Force?
Yes, it will. You have to have science throughout.
Okay, sir. In my third year now, which subject should I opt?
What all have you got now? What all subjects have you got?
PCMS, physics, chemistry, maths, and statistics.
You must have it. You have statistics, but in the final year, will you be required to drop PCM, one of them?
No, sir. I can even drop statistics also.
Yeah. So if you are interested in PCM, you have to retain. Of course, that is mandatory.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, Rahul Yadav.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Rahul.
Yes, sir. I'm audible, sir.
Yeah.
So my question is, what kind of strategy have you applied for written exams, like for NDA?
What strategy? See, you have to prepare yourself for the multiple choice questions.
Yes, sir.
And the syllabus is exactly same, which is there in 12th. What we did in Sainik School, of course, they towards the later part, as you are approaching the exams, about 1 month before that, they give you some kind of practice training in that.
Yes.
Okay. Because there are a lot of questions and you are short of time, so it is better to practice. So if you can, you have got a lot of online, you will have all the material there, or if you can join somebody who can give you a little focus your attention for your orientation. Otherwise, if you're prepared for 12th, you're prepared for a written exam, but it's basically you're training for going through that exam, the multiple choice questions.
So, but nowadays, written exam is going tougher. So the level of exam will be like JEE mains, in my
Okay.
point of view. So that's why I'm asking what type of strategy we have to apply.
Well, I can't specifically tell you anything at this stage.
Yeah,
but
I will, sir. I can.
Okay. Please.
As far as the strategy is concerned, I think what's most important is that you need to develop is the agility, and your fundamental has to be very, very clear. Okay, because even the other day when we had a session with ISRO scientist, okay, and he gave us a very, very beautiful rather example, saying that student, I mean, you guys makes things very, very complicated and forget basics. Okay. And they said that there are instances in ISRO that students were asked to explain Ohm's law. And they forgot Ohm's law and they prepared everything else.
Yes, sir.
I think what we need is that the fundamental has to be very clear when it comes to JEE, whether it comes to CDSA or even NDA, because they look at the agility and how you go with things pretty quicker and faster. I think, sir, have I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you. Okay, Nitin Saleh. Nitin, are you there? Okay, we'll come back. Okay, Swara. Swara, are you there, Swara? Swara Pandey?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, my question is, what requirements are there for girls to apply for IF?
There are no specific requirements for girls. I mean, the QRs are same as boys. Now, of course, girls are getting permanent commission also and going into fighter stream. So I don't think there are any separate requirements, specific requirement for girls. Don't worry. You go over the site of the Air Force. The basic requirements are given there. And,
Okay.
that's all.
Okay, so there is a small surprise for you. We have Group Captain Sanjay Singh also joined this webinar, and he says that he served under Miggy sir. Maybe him, yeah.
Miggy is my pet name of the Air Force. Yeah.
In case Sanjay, I mean, Group Captain Sanjay, if you are there, would you like to talk to sir? Hello.
Hello, SK.
Maybe he has signed off. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Now again, I'm going to call up 4 names: Akshat Rawat, Aditya, Malhar Satre, and Tejas Patil. These 4 people, be ready. Akshat, please come back. Please ask your question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my audio had gone off. Sorry.
Yeah. Sanjay. Okay. Yeah.
First of all, maybe sir, Jai Hind to you, sir.
Hi, Sanjay. Where are you these days?
Right now, lockdown in Delhi, sir. Otherwise, posted in Guwahati.
Oh wow, very good, very good. So
So
Vijay,
nice to sir.
me and Sanjay SK were together in Force Con when I was commanding Force Con. I must say SK is a very fine officer, great technician, and we really depended upon him for all our aircraft readiness. And he's a great friend, of course, beyond everything else.
Nice to hear those great words from you, sir. So great to hear, sir.
Thank you, Group Captain SK, sir. Thank you
so much. Thank you so much. And
Hi,
I've been
SK.
really monitoring your advice and enjoying it, sir.
Oh yes,
Again, sir. Thank
so nice, so nice. You get in touch with me on phone also, please.
By the way,
Sure, sir, I'll do that, sir.
There is one more. Your junior from Sainik School, Reva, had called me the other day.
Okay.
Subir Das.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he's in Bombay.
Yeah, he's in Bombay,
he's doing very well. He's preparing. He's a producer now, film producer.
Yes, he's a film producer. Yeah. We are also going to call him as one of the speakers.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, guys. For the small this thing. Akshat Rawat, can we have Akshat? Akshat, are you there?
Good afternoon, sir. Am I audible?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sir, can people holding a commercial pilot license, can they apply for Air Force directly?
They can apply, but they will have to go through the exam. All the tests, all the steps which are there for selection, they will have to go through that.
Okay, so is there any special entry for them?
No. There is no special entry.
Okay, so one more question. Have you ever been in a dog fight, sir? 1-to-1.
With the enemy?
Yeah.
No, never. Because dog fight, we do train for dog fight, and our day-to-day training in the air defense squadron, especially in which I have been, it involves dog fight, because ultimately you may enter into a dog fight. But now when we are operating more and more advanced aircraft, which have got radar which can see about 200 kilometers, 300 kilometers, the missiles which can fire 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers, there will be a very rare chance when you will come so close that you will have to engage in a dogfight. But you cannot forget the basics, like Vijay just covered, or the academics. You cannot forget the basics, because in every fighter squad aircraft team today, the most fighter aircraft also will have a gun.
Okay.
Gun can fire only 1 kilometer, not more than that. So you don't know what kind of situation you will reach at a particular moment. But entering into dogfight is a very rare thing in present environment.
One last question, sir. Sir, why are we still using a 40-year-old aircraft, that is a MiG-21 Bison, whereas our enemy Pakistan, they are still using those F-16s, which are more advanced and powerful? So why is that?
But Pakistan Air Force has also got A5s, Mirage 3s, F6.
No, but during face-off, they're always using those advanced aircraft like last
So
year.
actually, if you compare the kind of force levels, Indian Air Force has got a large number of advanced aircraft as compared to Pakistan. Okay. Second thing is the Bisons which are there, the engine and the airframe may be old, but all their avionics, all the equipment, all the weapon system, everything is up to date and the latest, state of the art. Okay, we've got best of the radar, we've got best of missiles. So it's a very potent aircraft right now. And a country like India, which is now in the transition phase, we are a great country, but we don't have so much of money. We still have to utilize those aircraft which were there and still have life left. So we went for a happy compromise where we used the old aircraft airframe and engine and modified the avionics, armament, weapon system, everything. While at the same time, we also went for Su-30s, MiG-29, Mirage 2000s. MiG-29 also today is quite an old aircraft, I would say. But MiG-29 has been upgraded. Mirage 2000 a very old aircraft, but it has been upgraded. Okay, Su-30 after some time will be upgraded. So you cannot just throw away an aircraft just because it is 40, 50-year old. You modify it.
Right.
You understood?
Yes.
And
I think it depends more on the pilot rather than the.
Of course, it is always a man behind the machine. There is no doubt about it. It's always a man behind the machine.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Akshat, for asking that question. Aditya, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Aditya, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Sir, any sports certificates will help in Air Forces, sir?
No, sports certificate will not help you in, I would say, in during selection. But once you are selected, once you are in the Air Force itself, you have got Air Force teams which represent the Air Force or your command or your squadron or your base. So you will have an edge there, and you will be able to participate and you represent the Air Force in various competitions. But for selection, I am afraid the sports certificates have they don't have that kind of weightage.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. We have Malhar Satre. Malhar, are you there? Yeah.
Yes, sir, I'm there.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. So my question is, as someone who suffers from motion sickness, not severe, but someone who suffers from motion sickness, will that affect my performance in the Air Force?
Okay. I am not sure if motion sickness has got any connection or relationship with the air sickness. That the medical side will be able to answer. But I have seen many people when they go for the initial flying, they have air sickness, but they overcome that. And during the training, adequate, leeway is given for a cadet to overcome the air sickness. But after having given him certain amount of defined, extra sorties and extra air experience, if still a person is not able to come out of that air sickness, then of course he is grounded and he's given a choice of going for ground duty branches or leaving the academy. Okay,
Thank
so
you,
I don't think motion sickness should worry you so much as long as you don't have the air sickness.
Got it, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Malhar. Yeah. Do we have Tejas Patil?
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir. As of now, I have passed my 10 standard boards. So I have to give my 11th and 12th through PCM subjects. But
Yes.
I have a question that which colleges could be better for passing this so that I can give the NDA exams and the further goals easily.
Which colleges?
Yes, means which special colleges are available so that I can go through NDA easily.
No, if you have already given your 10th exam, then you continue in the same school. Which school are you going to?
Carmel Convent High School, Badlapur.
Okay, so you continue, you do your 12th from there and appear for NDA because you don't have to go to college if you want to go to NDA. You have to complete 12th and then go for NDA directly if you get selected.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Just for others information, perhaps Tejas has missed that opportunity, sir. But Maharashtra government has an academy in Aurangabad who train students for NDA preparation.
Very good.
It's a 2-year course. Okay? And the selection is basis the pre-selection criteria, which typically happen after 9th exam. Sorry, 10th exam, immediately after 10th exam.
Okay.
And then they are like, rather kept there for 2 years and they train for NDA.
Very nice.
This is an initiative by state government.
Okay, that's very good.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now we are going to call out next 4 names. Sir, would you like to take a break, maybe a water break or something like
No,
that?
but how long you think, Abhi, how many?
So we are supposed to, I mean, like, we are just reaching 90 minutes. Okay. If you can give us maybe 10.
Oh, we'll continue. No problem.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, fine. Okay. I'm going to call out next 4 names. Jai More, Dhanashri Vagmare, Cadet Shiva Raju, and Jaskaran Singh. Okay. So, Jai, are you there?
Jai Hind, sir.
Yeah.
Jai Hind. Jai Hind.
Sir, I would like to share that my grandfather served in Air Force for good 37 years. And I am preparing, currently I am preparing for civil services for IS post.
Okay.
So my question was for an Indian Air Force officer, which is the most challenging rank or posting?
Your grandfather was in which branch and where was he working? Hello?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Hello?
No, I think we are not able to, connect with him. We'll get back.
Okay.
Okay, Dhanashri, are you there? Dhanashri Vagmere.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sir, I just wanted to ask, in a medical test, does it include some height criteria or what are the criteria for medical tests?
Okay, for medical test, you're talking from the fighter pilot's point of view, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. There are various criteria. Firstly, your height, normal height, what we talk about. Then you have sitting height. Then you have your leg length. Then you have thigh length. All these have got minimum and maximum limits. This is basically to cater for you sitting inside the fighter cockpit, and in case of any emergency where you have to eject from the aircraft. Okay, so there are, I don't remember, for what is supposed to be torso height, what should be the leg length, and what should be the thigh length. But there are criteria, of course, laid down specifically for these. And accordingly, then you are told whether you are fit for transports, fighters, or helicopters. Okay.
So any preparations we on our side can be doing for a medical test?
No. Don't do anything. Don't do anything for medical test. Even if there are some people who are advising you do this, do that, eat this, eat that, and all. You should be well within the weight limits for your height and age, which is given anywhere in any chart. You should maintain that and keep yourself fit. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dhanashri. Do we have a cadet, Shiva Raju? Shiva, are you there?
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm here.
Yeah, please ask your question.
Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind, Shiva.
Sir, may you please acquaint me with all the ground duty opportunities available in the Indian Air Force?
Okay. Just as the pilots have a very important role to play in the Indian Air Force, similarly, the ground duty branches play equally important role.
Yes.
Okay. I'll start from the engineering side. So engineers, look after the aircraft maintenance, look after the communication maintenance, or the radio equipment maintenance, various other kinds of, radar maintenance, everything.
Yes.
Then you have administrative officers who look after various administrative jobs. They look after the land record, they look after security, they look after your accommodation, they look after various other things. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then you have logistic officers. Logistic officers look after the supplies of your equipment, the supply of your spare parts, the supply of your clothing, supply of your uniform. The pilots wear different kind of clothing. They have different kind of helmets and all. So logisticians look after that. They look after your rations. They look after your various other things. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then you have accounts officers. Accounts officers look after your pay and allowances, various other expenditures which are there. So they look after that. Then you have air traffic control officers who are looking after the air traffic control. It's very self-explanatory. And then you have meteorological officers, Met officers. So Met officers also very important because every day they forecast the weather. They forecast the the weather at the target in case of operations, and they keep a record of all these things, and they give you warnings in advance. Okay, that a thunderstorm is approaching or whatever in your area of operations. So Met officers are there. Legal officers are there. I have already covered.
Yes,
so,
sir.
there are medical branches there. So there are there are various ground duty branches who perform very important roles in the Indian Air Force. It's basically like its whole thing is like an orchestra. You've seen an orchestra play. There's so many instruments.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Even if one instrument is not playing well, you will not have a fine tune, a beautiful tune coming out of it.
Right, sir.
So everybody is equally important, and they play a very important role. Though of course it is the pilots who go and deliver the weapon and actually fight the war, but everybody has equally important.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, I would like to tell you something that, sir, I am from Services Preparatory Institute, SPI, Aurangabad.
Okay, very good.
Sir, earlier Vijay sir told that there is one government of Maharashtra undertaking SPI, Aurangabad. So, sir, so it specially prepares cadets to join the National Defense Academy.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, we are happy and glad, Shiva, for joining us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Do we have a Jaskaran Singh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I wanted to ask that candidates who are getting selected for Short Service Commission Flying Branch, do they get chance to be a fighter pilot, or only helicopters and transports are there for them?
Initially, helicopter and transports were only there, but I am told that this has been approved. This process has been approved that the Short Service Commission pilots are also being permitted to go for fighters. I have heard, I am not sure. This has, till the time I was in Indian Air Force, it was not permitted, but there was a case taken up for that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to ask last 4 questions. I mean, they are girls.
Okay.
Because see, I mean, questions are coming.
Okay.
And so, we'll not be in a position to take all of them, but last 4 questions from a girls. Girls. And then I'm going to allow maybe 1 or 2 parents to ask questions.
Sure.
Question from my end.
No problem. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So now I'm going to call out Surbhi. Surbhi, be ready. Avantika, then Prajwal and Nikita. Okay. So Surbhi, are you?
Yes, sir, I'm there. Jain, sir.
Jain, Surbhi, go ahead.
Sir, it was wonderful listening you all this while.
Thank you.
Sir, I'm in my final year of graduation with PCM as my subjects. Sir, but in class 12, I was not able to score a 60% in physics.
No problem.
Sir, physics alone.
No problem at all.
Sir, can I join Air Force as a pilot?
Oh, yes, 100% you can join because you've got PCM and you are now in your final year. You must straight away apply for your AFCAT.
Sir, but it was shown in the Indian Air Force portal that only it is mandatory for a student to score 60% each in physics and maths. Sir, is that so?
No,
Sir,
I don't
60%
think.
each in physics and maths.
No, I don't think. Aggregate should be 60%.
Sir,
you
it
once
was,
again verify the thing, but I am not sure whether that is the requirement. As far as I know, it is the aggregate of 60%.
Thank you, sir.
But you confirm again, Surabhi, okay?
Sir, it was shown in the Indian Air Force that portal, sir, that
Okay,
60% each in physics and maths is required.
Okay, I'll find out once again latest position and convey it to Vijay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so Surbi, you drop a mail to me and we'll just get.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can we have Avantika? Avantika from Bangalore. Avantika, are you there? Okay, fine. Do we have a Nikita? Nikita from Pune?
Yes. Yes. I'm Nikita, sir.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. So I want to ask for air traffic controller, what do they work and how to go over there, how to achieve that position so that I can become.
Okay. Air traffic controllers play a very important role in controlling the air traffic in an airfield. Okay. So the selection is same as, you know, you go through the FCAT and then get selected for Adam branch initially. You have to get selected for Adam branch. Okay.
Okay.
And then you go for your training to AFA for 1 year. And there you opt for air traffic control. And then your specialized training takes place for another 6 months there on air traffic control. And then you are posted to a base where you, of course, you go through various stages of training. So all air traffic controllers are basically Adam branch officers who specialize in air traffic.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Nikita. Okay. So that's all. I think there are a couple of names still remaining, but I to get back to them. If they have any more questions, we'll write back to you, sir.
Sure.
I would like to ask, in case if you have a parents, and in case parents wants to ask some questions.
Okay. Sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Are there any parents who would like to ask question? No? Okay, fine. Sir, I would like to ask you one question.
Okay, please.
So solo flying is an awesome experience for every fighter pilot.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think experience which you cherish throughout your life.
Absolutely.
How was your experience of your solo flight?
Solo flight of a fighter aircraft you're talking about?
Yeah, fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My solo flight of a fighter aircraft was in Tezpur. Okay. Firstly, that Assam is such a beautiful place, and when you're training with a instructor there, all the time you're busy because you know there is a person sitting behind all the time telling you do this, do that, and all that thing. So you're only concentrating in your instruments and all, not looking around much. But and there is always this thought in your mind that there is somebody there behind. Koi baat nahi, kuch hua gadbad, so he's there to take care. Okay, but when you're going for solo, it's a totally different ball game. You are all alone in that aircraft, and firstly you have to be 200% inside the cockpit, both physically and mentally, and then secondly you get a lot of time to look around and enjoy the beauty of the earth below you. I think it's a wonderful experience. I mean, I can't express it in words, but one has to experience it to feel it. I really enjoyed the thing, and you really feel that you are in the command of the whole situation.
Wow.
And first time as a young boy, you're just coming up about how 18, 19, 20, 21 years of age, and suddenly you find yourself flying along, all alone in the skies at the speed that you want to fly, of course.
And what's the typical speed, sir? What's the typical speed?
Typically, you fly at about 700, 800 kilometers per hour. But normally, the max speed is about, at the height, it is about 2,400 kilometers per hour at height. And that is more than Mach 2 and twice the speed of sound. And at lower levels, max speed is about 1,500 kilometers per hour. So you experience both these during your training stages.
Okay. Fine. I think Avantika has joined once again. Avantika, okay, you can ask your question now. Avantika, are you there? Please ask your question. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, so she has typed in a question and she would like to understand that how is the selection procedure for administrative branch? I mean, are they different from flying branch?
The only difference is of the PABT. Otherwise, after the graduation, you apply for FCAT, get selected, go for SSB. It is, I mean, you have to do the same thing, you know, your situation reaction test, psychology test, and all that. Only thing is that you don't have to appear for the PABT. That's all.
Okay.
There, of course, in the graduation, you need not take PCM if you are going for administrative branch. PCM is not mandatory.
So I understand PABT is a very tough test, but then why it is just once in a lifetime?
I covered earlier. It is the aptitude.
Okay.
Okay, and if you have to do it 2-3 times, you may practice a particular thing and get through that particular test, isn't it? Though it may not be an inborn aptitude. Let me tell you, unlike swimming, which is an inborn trait of every individual, every mammal, flying is not an inborn trait. Like a small baby who's recently born, you put the baby in the tub, she will start swimming after some time. But flying you cannot do. And therefore, this kind of aptitude is present only in very few people. And that can be tested only once to check your aptitude. Because if you do it 2-3 times, you will practice it. But if the aptitude is not there, you have practiced and somehow got through, then in certain circumstances in air, you may not be able to recover the aircraft and you may land up in some kind of trouble.
Correct.
That's why it is done only once.
Correct. Sir, Prajwal is trying to ask you a question. Prajwal, please, because he said I Googled it, but I'm not getting the answer. So I would like to ask.
Yes. Yes, sir. First of all, thank you, sir, for sharing your wisdom and knowledge.
Thanks.
Sir, my question is that is there any particular rank in all the armed forces, like including Army, Navy, and Air Force, for the recruitment of RAW, like being recruited in RAW as a spy? So, is there any particular rank after which you can apply there?
No. I don't know what is the selection process for RAW, but from armed forces, I have not seen any officer going for RAW. Though there are
no, sir, because from what?
There are intelligence branches, intelligence departments in the respective services in which the officers are selected and they go there. But for RAW, we do not send any officers from the armed forces. The certain officers who retire from Air Force or short service commission officers after certain years of service, they leave the armed forces and then once again join through normal process into RAW. But there is no formalized procedure that you send some officers laterally to RAW at certain ranks.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's one question typed. I think this is the last question. Okay. He's saying that he heard some rumors that only in case if you have some legacy from armed forces, then only you'll get selected. If you're a non-legacy, you won't get that. I think that's
totally. I mean, let me tell you, the selection is very, very fair. I mean, there are people at different levels in the SSB and all that thing. There is just no basis for this kind of thought process. He may have heard somewhere and all, but that's an email. It's not there.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I think it was a wonderful session, and
same here.
1 hour 45 minutes we've been discussing about a lot of stuff. Okay, and I think I must say thank you to you because you could take out time from your busy schedule and gave us this valuable time. So our intention is that with your session, if we are in a position to, if we both can influence a couple of students who go and get motivated and become a fighter pilot, I think we have done our bit. So thank you so much for this lovely session. I mean, I just cannot put that into words. I'm so immensely grateful. Okay, and my gratitude from my team. because though it's a one and a half hour of session, but there's a lot of preparation goes at the back end. And I must thank my team member Aditya, Ninad, Swapnali. Okay, they also relentlessly work to make every session very, very successful. And so thank you very much, sir, and thank you, thanks team. Okay, it was lovely contribution from your end also. Thank you so much. So that's all, sir. So
once again, thanks.
Yes, if I have some questions from students, I will surely get in touch.
Yeah, you can do that. And from my side also, thanks a lot, Vijay, for giving me this opportunity. And in last about 90 minutes or so, I could relive my days in the Indian Air Force.
Yeah.
And I'm always available in every moment to help out the youngsters or to motivate them, answer their questions, to clarify their doubts so that they can force. And I wish them all the best. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for your team also.
And sometime in the future also, we will request, come back once again on this platform. Yeah. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you. God bless.